So you think you can walk into this company and steal my shine? You're not even half as pretty as I am, so I even wonder what everyone sees in you. It's always Lutana this, Lutana that. Or have you seen the new girl? She's so this, she's so that, blah blah blah. I will not sit back and watch you take my place. If you cannot stand the way I treat you, then walk, leave. Lutana did not budge. You may have connections here, but you are not God, Mirabel. No matter what you do to me, I will be successful here. Mirabel laughed again. I would like to see you and your God try. Sometimes, people will hate you for no reason and do all they can to see you fail. But do not panic. These trials could be preparing you for something far greater than you can imagine. You don't understand? Let me tell you a story. Lutana was a very hardworking and ambitious girl. She was raised by her mother, Njide, in Nando, a small rural village in the eastern parts of Nigeria. She had never known her father. Her mother was all she had, and with each day that passed, with each day that she watched her mother struggle, Lutana's resolve became stronger. She was determined to work hard and change the condition of her small family. Njide was not a rich woman, but you could not call her poor either. They had a roof over their head, clothes on their backs, and could afford the luxury of having 3 square meals. For Njide, the most important thing to her was to make sure that her daughter was educated. Lutana was such a bright child, intelligent and determined to succeed. Right from her kindergarten days till the completion of her secondary school education in the village school, she always came out top of her class. And it was no surprise when she quickly gained admission into the university. In order to be able to provide for herself and her daughter, Njide sold fried bean cakes, popularly known as akara, in the village center. Her akara was legendary, the best in that area. People clamored for it, to the point that some people who were envious of her, especially those in the same line of business, insisted that there was something diabolical about Njide's akara. But in truth, Njide was merely good at what she does. The woman made good money from her small business, but all the proceeds was invested into Lutana's education. Njide worked so hard to make sure that her daughter got the best kind of education that she could afford, as she believed it would give her the opportunity for a better life. Years later, Njide's dream became a reality. Lutana completed her university education and again came out in flying colors. However, this new milestone came with its own challenges. Lutana had attended a federal university in the East. Therefore, she remained close to home with the opportunity to visit and help her mother every weekend. Now, school was over and it was time to move on to the next and final phase of her education, which was the 1-year compulsory service. Lutana was posted to serve in the big city of Lagos. The news came with mixed feelings for the young lady. She was excited to begin a new adventure in the city, to see all the beautiful things she had heard about the big city. But at the same time, she was sad. Moving to the city only meant that she had to leave her mother behind. Lutana had never been away from her mother, so this move was a major one for her. Njide felt the same way too, but she knew that it was for the best. And so she prayed for her daughter and then sent her on her way. What none of them knew was that this was a journey that was going to change their lives forever in unimaginable ways. Lutana arrived in Lagos in one piece. Yes, she had heard that the place was big, but nothing prepared her for what she saw. The place was not just big, it was alive with activities. Everyone was busy and seemed in so much hurry. She was in awe of the place. Coming from a small village, the city was a whole new world for her. She had a lot of learning to do in order to keep up. Lutana had graduated top of her class with a distinction in business management. Hence, she was posted to serve in Fun Foods Co., one of the biggest companies in Lagos. The company produced a wide range of edible products such as biscuits, pasta, noodles, salt, spices, sugar, and a whole lot more. As a core member serving in the company, besides the regular monthly allowance from the government, the company paid her a substantial amount of money that could cover her feeding and basic needs, as well as a one-bedroom apartment. However, as a core member, she would not be assigned to a major role, at least not in the beginning. She would need to undergo some form of training to ready her to take on her own tasks. And fueled by her determination, Lutana was ready to put in her best and excel here too. Perhaps she would be able to secure a permanent position after her service year. On her first day at work, she was introduced along with two other core members, and the reception they received was warm. As the only female in the group, it was natural that the male staff was more receptive than the female staff. After all, unlike pairs attract, and vice versa. After the whole introduction, the newbies were assigned to their trainers. The trainer, of course, had to be a person who had worked in the company for a long period of time and knew everything about the company and its operation. Lutana was assigned to work with Mirabel, a stunningly beautiful lady who had worked with the company as a sales manager for over 5 years. Mirabel's beauty and the grace with which she carried herself drew people to her as a butterfly is drawn to a flower. The men clamored for her attention, and Mirabel was all too thrilled with the kind of attention she got. And to crown it all, she also happened to be the boss's niece. The company was owned by Madam Fumilola Ayeola, a big-time businesswoman who had built her company from the scratch. The company was a child she had born out of pain and heartbreak. Fumilola was from a wealthy family. Her father was a big-time politician. She had fallen in love with Tayo, a man 5 years her junior. But their relationship was not accepted by both families, and for different reasons. Her family thought he was after their wealth, since the young man did not have much. They could not wrap their heads around why a man would want to marry a woman who was 5 years his junior, except he was after something. As for Tayo's family, they insisted that it was a taboo for a woman to be older than her husband. But as for the couple, They cared less. They loved each other very much, and that was all that mattered to the both of them. They eventually got married and had 2 children together. But one day, an unfortunate incident happened, and it broke their once happy marriage beyond repair, as well as their heart. After her husband abandoned her with their children and took another wife, with the support of his family, who were thrilled that their son had broken free from the charm that was tying him down, Fumilola, after mourning her fate, picked herself up and channeled all her pain into building a name for herself and a legacy for her children. So back to our story. Lutana was assigned to work with Mirabel, and that was the beginning of her ordeal. Naturally, she was not just beautiful, she was kind, gentle, always ready to offer assistance to anyone in need, no matter the position, and had a smile ready for everyone. As a result, the other workers loved her. Her name was on the lips of everyone, and even the good-looking male workers hovered around her. Her relationship with almost everyone in the office flowed seamlessly. She became the new heartthrob of the office. And this did not go well with Mirabel. Mirabel enjoyed the attention she usually got, and even got into her head, making her somewhat rude and snobbish. But since Lutana's arrival, the attention she got had shifted, and she found herself on her own most of the time. This infuriated her, and unconsciously, she developed some sort of hatred for the poor girl. Mirabel made the job difficult and miserable for poor Lutana. Instead of training her, she turned Lutana to an errand girl. Lutana, clean my shoes. Lutana, buy me food. Lutana, clean my desk. Lutana this, Lutana that. And to make matters worse, she kept sending reports to the human resource team, complaining about how lazy and unwilling to learn Lutana was. The other workers saw how badly Mirabel treated Lutana and tried to talk to her, but she shunned them rudely, and they decided to mind their business. After all, Mirabel was untouchable. Her aunt owned the company, but they were just random people who needed the job to survive. All they could do was to offer Lutana moral support and show her all the love that they could. Lutana became deeply sad and worried about the way things were going. This was not how she envisioned the whole thing to work out. 2 months had gone, yet she had not achieved or even learned much. She had placed all her hopes on this job. From where she was looking, it was her only ticket to creating a good life for herself and for her mother. And if she was going to succeed and secure a spot for herself in this company, she had to do something about the current situation of things. One day, after the close of work, she summoned courage and decided to approach Mirabel. Mirabel had gone to the restroom to freshen up, and Lutana, seizing the opportunity, followed her immediately. Lutana stood watching Mirabel, who was fixing her makeup in front of the mirror. She did not know what to say or how to begin. But then, Mirabel cut through her thoughts. Do you have anything to say, or do you just want to stand there and stare in such a disrespectful manner? Lutana caught herself immediately. I'm sorry, Miss Mirabel. I did not mean to stare. I was just wondering if I could speak with you for a moment. Mirabel smirked, but said nothing, and so Lutana took it as a cue to continue talking. I don't know how to put this, but I have noticed that for a while now, your attitude towards me has changed. I want to know if I have done something to make you feel the way you do towards me, or maybe there's something I'm not doing right. Please let me know. My career is very much dependent on this job. Mirabel laughed mockingly. So you are not as dumb as I thought after all. You are quite observant, and I must give you credit for that. Then her face hardened. So you think you can walk into this company and steal my shine? You're not even half as pretty as I am, so I even wonder what everyone sees in you. It's always Lutana this, Lutana that. Or have you seen the new girl? She saw this, she saw that, blah blah blah. She came closer, looking straight into Lutana's face. I will not sit back and watch you take my place. If you cannot stand the way I treat you, then walk, leave. Lutana went down on her knees in tears. Please, Mirabel, I really need this job. I don't care, Mirabel exclaimed, making a move to walk away. But Lutana stood up immediately and blocked her path. I will report you if you don't change, and I have witnesses to confirm what I have to say, she said with a newfound determination. But Mirabel just laughed in her face. I am untouchable in this company, Lutana. My aunt owns this place, so I'd like to see you try. It will be your word against mine. Let's see who will win. But Lutana did not budge. You may have connections here, but you are not God, Mirabel. No matter what you do to me, I will be successful here. Mirabel laughed again. I would like to see you and your God try. Still laughing, she left Lutana dumbfounded and walked out of the restroom. Lutana went home that day feeling depressed. She had started this job with high hopes, but now she could not even describe the way she was feeling. Unable to eat, she cried that night, so much that she fell asleep and woke up the next morning with a severe headache. From that day forward, things only got worse for Lutana. Her usually smiley face became withdrawn, and her coworkers noticed how sad she had become. They knew why, of course, but there was not much they could do about it. As if it was pre-planned, they all stopped talking to Mirabel, and this only made her more frustrated, and she took out the whole frustration on Lutana. Lutana too became really frustrated. She thought about calling her mother, but then she thought against it. It would only make the poor woman sad and add to her problems. From the time she learned to think, her mother had taught her to talk to God about anything that bothered her, and so she decided to take it to God in prayer instead. She cried to God, pouring out her heart to Him, and almost immediately her prayers reached the heavens. One morning, something happened. Even though Mirabel was the head of her team, it was her duty to also prepare and serve Madam Fumilola's coffee every morning. That morning, there was no menial task to frustrate Lutana with. And so an idea struck Mirabel. She would take Lutana's problems to a higher level. She would pretend to be ill and instruct Lutana to make and serve the coffee. Since she was the only one who knew how her aunt liked her coffee, whatever Lutana made would be a disaster. And her aunt, a no-nonsense woman, would be furious. That way, Lutana would have gotten into her auntie's black book, and coupled with the reports that had been made against her stay in the company would soon come to an end. Mirabel smiled. Poor Lutana, she said to herself. She did just as she had planned, but the outcome was not what she had expected. You know that moment when people have planned to watch you fail, and then the whole thing turns around in your favor? That was exactly what happened that day. Lutana had no idea how to make a cup of coffee. The ingredients were set before her, and she stared at them, obviously confused. Then an idea struck her. She brought out her phone and went on YouTube, where there were various recipes and videos giving a step-by-step guide on how to make a good cup of coffee. She picked the video she liked best, and after saying a short prayer in her mind, proceeded to follow the video's tutor. And in a few minutes, a steaming cup of coffee was ready. Madam Fumilola's office was nothing like what Lutana had seen before. It was large and beautiful. Madam Fumilola was seated behind her desk, occupied with some paperwork when Lutana walked in, bearing the coffee tray. As soon as she walked in, Madam Fumilola looked up and then froze, as if she had seen a ghost. "Good morning, ma," Lutana greeted, her voice calm. "Miss Mirabel is ill, and so she asked me to prepare and bring in your cup of coffee. I was not sure how you liked it, so I just put the milk and sugar aside," she said, almost a bit too fast. But Madam Fumilola kept staring at her. "Who are you?" she asked simply, her eyes filled with something unexplainable. "My name is Lutana Anyao. I am a 7-corps member in the marketing department." "Oh," Fumilola said, her gaze never leaving the girl's face. She pointed to the table. "Mirabel should know better than having a stranger make my coffee. But somehow I cannot explain. I like you. 2 cubes of sugar and a generous amount of milk, thank you." Lutana did as Madam directed and exited the office as fast as she could. Mirabel waited for the outburst she expected to follow, but none of it came. In fact, the opposite was what happened. Madam Fumilola thoroughly enjoyed her cup of coffee. Mirabel's coffee was good, but this one made by the new girl was absolutely delicious. When Mirabel came in later to clear the table, just so that she could get the opportunity to further destroy Lutana's image, she was met with a huge surprise. Madame could not stop singing Lutana's praises. "That girl makes a delicious cup of coffee," she exclaimed. "I mean, your coffee is great too, but that girl is amazing. And she's so calm. I like her already," she said, beaming. Mirabel was infuriated. What was it about that girl that made everyone wrapped around her and singing her praises? She thought to herself. Madam Fumilola's voice jolted her back to the present. "Are you okay, Mirabel? You don't look good. Lutana said you were ill earlier. How are you feeling now?" Mirabel smiled lightly. "I don't feel really good, Auntie, but I'll be fine before the end of the day." Fumilayo looked at her warmly. I think you are just stressed. Take the rest of the week off and don't worry about my morning coffee. I'll have Lutana make it henceforth. And before you leave, have HR send me the girl's file. You may leave now. Mirabel nearly lost her mind. She wanted to scream, but she had to hold herself. She walked out of the office more furious than she had ever been. Lutana was bent on taking everything from her. She managed to weave her way into everybody's heart, Mirabel thought to herself. But she was not about to give up. She was even more determined now to bring down Lutana. Later that night, Madame Fumilola could not sleep. Something about the new girl awakened feelings she had kept buried for a long time. Her first and only surviving son, Mayo, walked in on her as she sat alone in the living room in the middle of the night. Surprised at seeing her up at such hour, he asked, "Are you okay, mother? It's late. How come you are not asleep?" "I saw a girl today," she said, her eyes filling with tears. She looked so much like Ayomide. And something about her called out to me. I felt some sort of connection to her. And she has the stump from a sixth finger on her right hand, just like my Ayomide. "Mother," Mayo said, sitting in front of her. "Ayomide has been gone for years now, and I know you are still hurting. I am too. I miss my baby sister every day, but I know that she's in a better place now. You will meet so many people that will look like her and remind you of her, but they are not her. Don't do this to yourself again. Please go to bed." "You are probably right," Fumilola said. "The girl in question is even Igbo. There can be no connection," she said, trying so hard to convince herself that it was the truth. She went to bed, but sleep did not come until the early hours of the morning, and it was only for a few hours before she had to be up to get ready for the day. As soon as she settled in for the day, she quickly took out Lutana's files. She needed to know everything about the girl, and that was how she discovered that Lutana was very intelligent and had graduated top of her class, with distinctions. Fumilola was impressed. When Lutana came in with her coffee, she motioned to the girl to set down the tray. "Come over here and have a seat," she said, offering her a warm smile. "I just went through your file, and I must say that you have an impressive result. Your service here will be over in a few months. I think that a brain like yours will be an asset to this company. How do you feel about having a permanent position here? The salary is quite attractive, and you get a better accommodation. A means of transportation could be arranged. This is a very attractive offer." Lutana could not believe what she was hearing. She was literally in shock. This was exactly what she had been praying for, and here it was before her on a platter of gold. Her eyes filled with tears as she went down on her knees. "Thank you very much, Ma. I can't express how grateful I am. From the first day I stepped into this company, it has been my dream to have the privilege to work here. But this is huge. I promise never to let you down. I will do my best to make sure you don't regret taking this step," she said, her voice filled with excitement. Fumilola smiled. "You are intelligent. I know you will do well. I'll speak with the HR so that your training will begin immediately. you'll be moving to the customer relations department, which you will be expected to lead starting from the end of your service. My son, Mayowa, heads that department. He will teach you all you need to know. Lutana became confused. I'm sorry, ma. I wouldn't like to take your son's job. That would not be fair to him, she said innocently. Oh, you are too nice, Fumilola said. Don't worry, you will not be leaving him jobless. I'll be retiring in a few months, so he will take his place here as the new CEO of the company. And you, my dear, will fill the empty position. But for now, I will still expect my cup of coffee every morning. She finished with a smile. Lutana broke down in tears again. She could not believe how lucky she had gotten. The news about Lutana's upgrade soon spread round the office. Her colleagues were so happy for her. Lutana, you are so lucky, one of her female colleagues said. I wonder how you did it. Madam Fumilola is so hard to impress. Your guardian angel must be working around the clock, she said, obviously happy for her. Everyone congratulated her, but there was one bitter person whose heart was filled with rage. Mirabel. Mirabel was beyond frustrated. She had been hoping that when her aunt retired and her cousin Mayo moved in as the new CEO, she would take his former position as the head of the customer relations department. But even that dream had been taken away from her by Lutana. It just seemed as if whatever she did to frustrate the girl only landed her in a better place. Mirabel decided that it was time to take her away from the company entirely for good. Madam Fumilola had a small safe in her office where she stashed some of her valuables, including expensive jewelries and precious stones. But for some reason, she never locked the safe. Mirabel knew about this safe, and it would be the perfect setup she needed to get Lutana out of the picture. She came to work very early that morning and sneaked into Madam Fumilola's office. Went straight to the safe. There were a few dollar bills lying around and some expensive looking jewelries. The dollar bills seemed like the better option, so she quickly took them out and exited the office before anyone could see her. She waited patiently for when Madam Fumilola arrived. Lutana would leave to prepare her coffee, and that would be the perfect time to strike. As soon as Fumilola arrived, Lutana left her table to prepare her coffee as usual. Immediately she moved. Mirabel also made her move. She quickly approached Lutana's table, unzipped her bag, and planted the dollar notes in Lutana's wallet. Do I say fortunately or unfortunately? Lutana was supposed to be meeting Mayo, Madam's son, for the first time that day. Nothing prepared her for what she would meet when she stepped into the office. Fumilola was fuming angrily when she walked in with her tray of coffee. Mayo was doing his best to calm her down, but nothing she said was working. In a bid to avoid an awkward situation, she quickly set down the tray and excused herself. Almost as if on cue, Mirabel walked into the room. Her countenance quickly changed into surprise when she saw her aunt fuming. "Mayo, what is happening here?" she asked, her face edged with worry. Mayowa shook his head. "Someone has tampered with her safe. Her dollar notes are missing." "What?" Mirabel exclaimed. Dollar notes. I said it. Fumilola stopped pacing and looked at Mirabel. You said what, Mirabel? She asked impatiently. Mirabel glared at the door as if someone was there. I have never trusted this Lutana girl, not for one day. She shows up here and suddenly things start missing. I'm 100% sure that she has something to do with it. Haba, come off it, Mayowa interjected. This is a big accusation, Mirabel. You can't just go around accusing people without concrete evidence. But I'm sure of what I'm saying. I saw her sneak out of this office early this morning. I'm sure she must have been up to something. Stop it, Fumilola interrupted angrily. Lutana does not seem like the type of person who would do such a thing. And besides, she had no idea that I had a safe here. Mirabel laughed haughtily. Auntie, you trust people too much. There's no point going back and forth. Let's get the security to search her and her things. If she has the notes, we will surely find it on her. Meanwhile, Lutana was trying her best to concentrate on the task when the company's security men surrounded her table. She looked up at them surprised. What is the matter? She asked, visibly surprised. One of the men picked her bag, while the others escorted her into Fumilola's office. Lutana looked around, wondering what was going on. And then, Fumilola, her face stern, her voice cold. I'll ask you this just one time. Did you steal my money? Lutana was shocked. Steal money? I have never stolen anything from anyone in my life. I swear I did not take your money. Liar, Mirabel exclaimed. I saw you sneak out of this office this morning. You think you can escape this? Lutana looked at Mirabel, her eyes filled with tears. Why are you doing this to me? What did I ever do to you? Stop the pretense and the crocodile tears, Mirabel cut in angrily. She snatched Lutana's bag from the security men and poured out its contents, and the wallet dropped from the bag. She picked the wallet and poured out its contents, and the dollar bills came tumbling out. Lutana's eyes widened in shock, and she fell on her knees and broke down in tears. Please, ma, she pleaded with Madame Fumilola. I swear with my mother's life, I did not do this. Believe me. But Fumilola did not utter one word. Her attention was somewhere else. She gently bent down and picked Lutana's wallet, which had fallen to the ground. In it was a picture of a little girl and her mother. The little girl was obviously Lutana. Fumilayo's eyes filled with tears as she whispered, Ayomide. Mayowa, seeing that the atmosphere had changed, quickly discharged the security men and went to his mother's side. But when his eyes fell on the picture, he also froze. The resemblance was uncanny. He looked at Lutana, who still knelt on the floor, confused. Whose photo is this? He asked calmly. It's a photo of my mother and I, she replied, her confusion deepening. Is there a problem? She asked again. But Fumilola and her son, as if in sync, merely shook their heads. It's nothing, my dear. Get up, she said, signaling for her to rise to her feet. Then her face darkened as she looked at Mirabel. You know, I always knew you were ambitious, but I never thought you to be heartless. I know about the way you treated this young lady in this office, but I decided to let it slide. I took her away from your department." She paused and looked at Mirabel from head to toe. "I have this very small camera in this room that shows me everything that goes on here, right in the comfort of my bedroom." She took out her tablet and played a video which she made Mirabel watch. Mirabel's eyes widened with shock when she saw herself taking the money from the safe. She fell on her knees, pleading to be forgiven. But Fumilola shook her head. "I was shocked myself, but then I wanted to know what your plan was. That's why I joined you to play your little game. And I must say that I am sorely disappointed in you. Starting from today, you will go on an indefinite suspension until I decide what I want to do with you." Mirabel cried and pleaded, but Fumilola did not budge. She kept her face expressionless as Mirabel walked out of her office in tears. Again, her plan had backfired, and she was the one who had gotten burned, the one who had to face the humiliation that would follow. Fumilola looked at Lutana with eyes that said 1,000,001 things. "I'm so sorry you had to go through all of this." "It's alright, Ma. I'm only glad you saw the truth. I would never steal from anyone," Lutana responded in her usual quiet voice. Fumilola sat back in her seat. "Where is your mother?" she asked suddenly. Lutana was momentarily taken aback. Something she could not understand was going on here, but she answered the question regardless. "And what about your father?" Fumilayo asked again. Lutana shook her head. "I have never known him, and my mother never talks about him." Fumilola nodded. "Please sit. Mayo, please close the door behind you. I don't want to be disturbed." It was his cue to give the both of them some privacy. She turned back towards Lutana. "I know you are probably wondering what this is all about. Let me tell you a short story. 23 years ago, I lost my daughter. Her name was Ayomide, and she was just 2 years old at the time. She went to school with her brother as usual one day, but when the driver went to pick them up, Ayomide was nowhere to be found." Fumilola's eyes filled with tears. "My baby disappeared just like that. We searched and searched, put out missing person reports, but she was never found. Her disappearance broke our already shaky marriage. My husband loved her so much. She was a spiting image of him, and it broke his heart when we lost her. My husband and his family blamed me for everything. They said it happened out of my carelessness. He left me, and his family supported him. 6 months later, he was married to one of his numerous girlfriends. I bore my grief alone with my son, who was only 5 when it happened." She wiped her face and looked into Lutana's eyes. "The first day you walked into this office, I could have sworn that I saw my baby again. But then, I figured people look alike all the time. But today, I saw that photo. I do not mean to scare you, but you are the exact image of my baby." She opened a drawer and brought out a photo of a little girl and handed it over to Lutana. Lutana's eyes widened with shock when she saw the picture. It was truly an exact image of her as a little girl. Everything was the same, including the small stump from a sixth finger on her right hand. Lutana's eyes were clouded with confusion. It was not possible that she was this woman's child. They were not even from the same tribe. "I'm really sorry for your loss, ma. But I'm quite sure that there's no way that I am Ayomide. I am Igbo, and I grew up very far away from here. This could just be mere coincidence." Fumilayo smiled. "It's okay, my dear. But I just want to be certain this time around. I would love to meet your mother. I promise not to cause trouble. Even if I am not your real mother, something about you speaks to me, and I would love to get the opportunity to know you." Lutana smiled. The idea was a harmless one, as far as she knew. Madam Fumilayo was indeed a very nice woman. And so they both agreed to set out for Nando the next day. By the end of that day, Lutana was both physically, emotionally, and mentally drained. The whole day kept playing in her head as she lay in her bed later that night. No matter how much she tried to take her mind off it, she could not stop thinking about her conversation with Madam Fumilola. It was impossible that she was her mother. But the thought gnawed at her. The photo of Ayomide could very easily pass for her. Their features were exactly the same, so much that she could swear that they were the same persons. Without thinking, she picked up her phone to call her mother. But then, she thought, this was a conversation best had face to face. The drive to Nando was a very long one. They set out very early in the morning, but it was sundown by the time they drove into her mother's compound. Njide ran out when she saw the sleek car driving into her compound. She did not know anyone who owned a car. But when Lutana stepped out of the car, her face lit up with joy as she saw her daughter. She danced in circles, happy to see Lutana, but her dance suddenly came to a stop when she saw a woman step out of the car. The woman looked wealthy, and her clothes obviously expensive. And then the woman smiled, and her heart skipped a beat. When she smiled, it was just like seeing Lutana smile. She looked at her daughter. "Who is our visitor, Luta?" Lutana saw the color drained from her mother's face, but she remained passive. "This is Madam Fumilola," she said. "She owns the company I work for." The women exchanged pleasantries, and then Njide welcomed her into her small sitting room. The atmosphere was tense as they all sat down, and Njide feared that the day she dreaded had come upon her. Lota, this one you are here with your madam. I hope there's no problem," she asked, obviously worried. There's no problem," Fumilola chipped in. "Your daughter is such a lovely girl. I must say that you did a wonderful job raising her." But Njide was a smart woman. She could read the body language. Your boss does not follow you across the country just to tell you how well you raised your daughter. She knew who the woman was immediately she set her eyes on her. She knew that this day would eventually come, and here it was. "I know who you are and why you are here," Njide blurted out. "You look alike when you smile." I knew that I would eventually have to tell her the truth one day, but I did not expect it to be this way. Unfortunately, the day is here. Lutana looked at her mother with confusion written all over her face. "What are you talking about, mother?" Njide looked at her daughter, her eyes filled with pain. "Many years ago, then I lived in Odani, a big village a bit far from here, where I sold akara at the village market. One day, after the day's sales, I was on my way home when I saw this little girl crying. She was so small and alone. I took her and went round the market, searching for her mother, but no one was looking for a missing child. I took her to the local security, but they did not even take the matter as a serious one. And so I took her home. She could not understand our language or even speak clearly, so I had no idea what her name was or where she was coming from. We waited days, nothing. Weeks came, months came, yet nothing. And that was how we continued living together. And because I did not know what her name was, I named her Lutana. People started to talk and look at her in a strange way, so I took her and moved here. She became my child, as I had none of my own, and we have taken care of each other since then." She looked at Lutana, whose eyes was filled with tears. "I promised to tell you all this, my child, but I wanted it to be at the right time. I'm so sorry." Lutana broke down in tears. "You have nothing to be sorry about, mother. You sacrificed everything for me, a random girl you picked from the market. You worked so hard to make sure that I had a good life. How can I ever repay you, mother?" she cried. Fumilola watched the whole drama unfold. This whole scenario felt like a dream. She had never believed that a day would come when she would see her daughter again. She reached out to Njide. "Thank you very much for your selflessness. You have shown me today that good people really exist." I cannot explain how she showed up in these parts in the first place. She just disappeared from school one day without a trace. But I want to make a promise to you. Lutana may be biologically my daughter, but she is also yours. I do not intend to break the bond you share or take her away from you, but I would like for you to give me the opportunity to also get to know her." Njide agreed with all her heart, filled with joy. The situation did not turn out to be as bad as she feared. Fumilola even insisted on taking her out of the village to the city, where they could all be close to each other, and Njide could not refuse such an invitation. The next day, Njide picked up her very few important belongings, locked her doors, and traveled back to Lagos with her new family. Fumilola threw a big party to celebrate the return of her long-lost daughter, and every important person in the country was in attendance. Even the media, did not let the juicy story slip away from them. It was aired all over the evening news. The event was a grand affair that had Lutana and Njide as the main focus. The guests marveled at how fate had reunited Fumilola with her daughter after so many years. Mayowa could not let Lutana out of his sight, for somehow he had secretly carried the guilt of losing her in his heart. All these years, he had always said to himself that if he had been watching her instead of playing with his friends, she may not have disappeared. And now that she was back to them, he would never let her out of his sight again. Lutana's friends and colleagues were in attendance too. When Madam Fumilola made the announcement at the office, they were shocked at the revelation. "This world is really a small place," they whispered among themselves. They were so happy for Lutana, so happy that her life had taken a beautifully unexpected turn, and the fact that it had all happened whilst her enemy was plotting her downfall made it all the more exciting. Meanwhile, Mirabel sat at a corner in the party hall, alone. No friends or even a single colleague was by her side. In that moment, she realized what kind of person she truly was. Truly, she was not God. She had done a lot to destroy Lutana, but every single thing she did brought Lutana closer to reaching the top. Who would have thought that Lutana would turn out to be Ayomide? She thought to herself. Something in her urged her to move forward and ask Lutana for forgiveness, but her pride got the best of her. Instead, she picked up her bag and walked out of the party. "I will not grovel and embarrass myself here. I am bigger than that," she said to herself as she got into her car and drove away. Somewhere on the Lagos mainland, Tayo, Madam Fumilola's ex-husband, was seated in front of his television in his modestly furnished living room, watching the evening news. The news was usually the highlight of his day, but today it felt like watching a horror film. Every news channel had his ex-wife's face in it, and they all said the same thing. His Ayomide was alive. He doubted it at first, but when he saw the girl, he knew that it was unmistakably true. She was and had always been a spitting image of him. His eyes filled with tears, and just then, his wife, Martha, walked in carrying his dinner. She paused when she saw the tears in her husband's eyes. Tayo, why are you crying?" she asked, her voice void of emotion. Tayo looked up at his wife, ignoring the tone of her voice. "Ayomide is alive. She is back and on the news," he said with a shaky voice. Color drained from Martha's face as she dropped the tray she was carrying. "Impossible. I told them to..." She caught herself immediately, realizing the blunder that she was about to utter, but it was too late. Tayo stood up from his chair, his face hardening. "You did what, Martha?" he said, moving closer to her. "What did you just say?" he repeated, his voice cold. "It's all your fault," she blurted out. "If you had done as you said you would, and if those useless boys had obeyed simple instructions, all this would not be happening." Anger and confusion clouded his mind. What does that even mean? It means that If you had left Fumilola like you promised, this would not happen. You kept making empty promises, using me anyhow. You wished as your mistress while you continued to enjoy your life with your family. What was I supposed to do? I had to take what belongs to me by force. Tayo was dumbfounded. And so you went and abducted my child? You were not supposed to find out. I asked them to kill her, but obviously they chickened out. Hey! Tayo shouted. Can you hear yourself, Martha? You don't even feel remorseful about what you did. Why? Martha asked rhetorically. She's here now and my effort was even all for nothing. If I had known that you did not even have a penny to your name, I would not even have bothered, she said maliciously. I am finished, Tayo exclaimed. You made me leave my lovely wife. How could I have trusted you? Oh, come of it. Don't act all righteous and just now. I did not hold you at gunpoint or charm you. If you loved your family so much, then you should have stayed with them. But no, you chose to chase every skirt you saw. She interrupted him sharply. Tayo sat on the bare floor. This was truly his fault. He should not have listened to his family. He should have been true to his wife. Now he had lost his family. Martha could not even have children. Maybe this was karma, doing its thing, he said to himself. But one thing was certain, Martha would pay for what she had done. He went out and made a few phone calls, and very early the next morning, the police officers were leading a screaming Martha into their waiting van. Fumilola and her children were getting ready for work one morning when her housekeeper came to inform her that there was a man waiting outside to see her. Suspecting who it would be, she decided to see him outside. She had been expecting him to show up at any moment, but never would she let him into her home after all he had done. Just as she thought, Tayo stood outside her door. What a pleasant surprise, she said, putting a fake smile on her face. Tayo went straight to the point. I'm sorry about everything, Fumi. It was that witch Martha who planned everything. He went down on his knees. I swear I did not know until I saw the news a few nights ago and made her confess, and she's now behind bars. Please, forgive me. Fumilayo smiled to herself. I forgive you, Tayo. But what I will not tolerate is blaming Martha for everything. You were the one who went after her and made our family vulnerable. This is all on you, so deal with it. God has heard my cries and brought my child back to me. I bear no grudge against you, but I beg you, please, leave us alone in peace, Tayo. She left him standing there and went into her house to face the new family that awaited her. Njide lived with them, pending when her new house would be completed. Mayowa took up his role as the big brother, guiding Lutana through all she needed to learn about the company. In a few months' time, she would become the general manager, overseeing all the other departments in the company, including Mirabel's, when she returned from her suspension. Life turned around for Lutana for good after all that she had been through. She now had a doting brother, 2 mothers who suffocated her with love, and a job she could only imagine having in the past. What more could a young woman ask for? Hey lovers, thank you for listening to this story. If you are new here, welcome to our community. I hope you enjoyed listening to this story as much as I enjoyed creating it. If you have not done so already, please hit the subscribe button. And to support the growth of our community, give this video a big thumbs up. If you know someone who would enjoy a story like this, do not hesitate to share. Don't forget to leave a comment down below. Remember, like, share, drop a comment and subscribe. I'll take my leave now, but I hope to see you in my next video. Bye.